Hi, everyone. Welcome to Live with Janome. I'm Ann Hine, embroidery software specialist for Janome America. And today we are talking about easy does it quilting with your embroidery machine. I'm going to show you a few more things. This is the third in our series. So I'm going to show you today working with a purchase design. So let me get the camera on and say a proper hello. There we are. Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. I will post in our comments the other two segments. We had one in November and one in December. So this is our third segment of Easy Does It Quilting. And each time I do a little bit different, even though we have worked with a purchase design. I'm going to show you a few things that you can do with a purchase design in this segment so that you can see that. And I have my quilt done from our last segment, so I want to show you that. So I'm going to start with that first. So let me go there and let's see, there we go. So you can see that. So here's my quilt. It is all done. Got some extra threads on here. But yeah, it's all quilted. I did curve the corner and you can see the back here. I'm going to zoom in so you can see that stitching. Look at the back of that. That's beautiful. Now I did have in my blue dot bobbin case when I was quilting, and this is, I think I used it embroidery. Yes, I did. I used well, I think this is from Superior, a variegated in there, and then a solid color on the back. I don't think I used the variegated on the back side, but it came out beautiful, as you can see. And I'm working on my binding now. I'm going to bring that piece in. And what I'm going to do, I've just made a little mock-up here of my binding. I want to do that little peak of color, and I'm using this plaid, which was cut on the bias. And I'll probably cut the whole thing on the bias because I'm going around that corner. So I was just doing a little mock-up to create that little pop of color on there. So I will do a segment on how to create this and applying this to the quilt. This will be one of our segments coming up. I just wanted to show you what I started to work on with this. So as I get that together, I will do a segment on that as well. All right, so let's go back to the screen and then we will start in, there we go. All right, so I'm going to go over to the Artistic Digitizer software and show you in there, enlarging playing with the design a little bit in there, enlarging it, combining it, how to make a smooth transition with it. Now, you can increase the size of the design in the edit screen of your machine or in some of the other software, but in there it only goes up 20% and it's just stretching out the stitches. It does not add stitches. So when you're in software, you'll see you can add stitches to it. So that makes it a little bit easier. All right, so let's go to the software so I can show you that. And here we are. Just have to move a couple things out of the way so I have clear screen here. All right, so I'm going to open up the design that I did on the quilt we were just using. I just showed you from last time. And this is that little bee design, and I had it up here in this corner because that was the top corner of my quilt, and I was trying to save fabric on the side. So you can do that kind of thing. You can also center your design based on, and let me zoom in here so we can see this better, where the start and stop of the design is, where it starts and stops. If you put that right on the line, then you can just draw a straight line across your quilt and align the start and stop each time going across this way. And when I had it up here, I used the template to do it here because I didn't have that crosshair line. But I did draw a line, but this makes it even easier if you keep it centered. So depending on how you start. I just didn't want to start here because then just getting this on my quilt, I'd have to have a lot of extra fabric on that little baby quilt that I was doing. So on this design here, you can see it's 1,200 stitches, and it's pretty small. It's 5 by 5, so that's not too bad. And you could figure out, if your quilt, do the math. If your quilt is 45 wide, that's 9 hoopings across, at least that you're going to do. And then, if it was 60 down, that is 12 hoopings, 12 rows by 9. So you have to multiply that and get how many hoopings you're going to do. It's very doable. You know, I worked across, I did enlarge it a little bit, but if you really wanted this, the size of your hoop, you could stretch it like this with the corner handles if you wanted, or you could use and I have it outside the hoop, that's why it's pink. Or you could use the numbers in the little box over here in the toolbox and use those numbers. And then if you wanted to keep it on the line, you'd have to make sure you don't enlarge it too much to put it outside the hoop. So as long as you wanted to keep it on there. So I made this larger here using that. I could make it the whole size of this, I think this, and I have proportional checked here. I think this block is, the quilting one is 11 by 11, which let's see if I have to move it just slightly to one side, if it'll pop back in. Or maybe it's a little, yeah, that might be too large at 11 by 11. So let's do 10.5. There we go. So now it's as big as the hoop. I would print a template because I cannot put that on the center line, but I would print a template just so I would have it moving along just nicely. And you can see it's doubled in stitches because it is larger, okay? Now, we did talk about last time how different designs will nest together and some don't nest as well. And the nesting is when your designs are repeated in the second row and you bring it down here, that it will fit in that little spot right there. So that would work out very nicely. There are designs that do not do that, and I have some here. For example, let me delete that. I'm going to go to my browser. One of the ones I want to show you is, I think it's, well, this one here. This is typically a border design. You would maybe do it along your border. But if you wanted to quilt this across your quilt, if you copied this and just brought it down like that, you'd have these big gaps in the middle. And maybe you want that, maybe you don't. But you would have to, if you wanted to make your rows look a little nicer, you could offset it on the second row. And then the repeat would look much nicer. You can go ahead and if you have the full software, you could create a cut right here, or when you stitch your first one, you could figure out what that number is right here and write it down. And then on your screen, when you go in, you use a little hashtag with the number, and you can put in whatever that stitch number is. It'll move ahead for you and start right at that part. Okay, so that's a nice, easy way to do it if you don't want to deal with having a separate design where you've cut part of it, and then you have to remember to load that in and switch designs. When you stitch this one, when you figure out where the middle is right there, then that's the stitch number that you want to restart with over here. And I think I showed you that last time. On some of our newer machines, besides jumping, you can jump along by the plus sign to move ahead. Or if you know your stitch number, you can hit the little keypad. It's a little signal for the keypad, and then you can pop in that stitch number, and it will just quickly move you right to there, which is, I think that's a really quick way to go. Very, very quick way to go. So that's something to think about when working with designs that are like this, that you take a look at how they're going to repeat and how you like them repeating down your quilt, across and down your quilt. Of course, there are designs that are like this one. I think it's this one. Let me see. This design here will go in really quickly. This has a start, and it doesn't have a continuous part to it. So this would be a block to block design that you would do, or you can still do it edge to edge. You would just have to, let's move it over here. And because let's show you when you start this, it starts there. And then it's going to come around and end right there as well, and then restart over here. So if let's duplicate this one, and I could move it side to side. Let's see where this one is, just a little bit above, like that. So you could see how you would put it together, like that. Now, you don't want them touching. And then if you were putting it down here, how it would nest this way. So you have a little bit of gap. It doesn't like come up into the little parts, but that might not be too bad. Or if you wanted to try to offset, you still get some in there. So this is good in a block, or if you're going to do it across your hoop, you really have to think about that little space that's in there. And you can see that space much better if you do this. Let's select this, and I'm going to do the rectangular array, and it's going to do that on me. So let's do 3 rows this way and 3 on the top. Oops, not 63. Ugh, hold on a minute. Doesn't like 63. That would not be the one to do. So let me close that one. I'm not going to save it. No, let's not apply it. And then let's try it again. I'll go get it. All right, and then we'll select it. I'll go to my rectangular array. Let's change that to 3 and change this one to 3. Now it's doing this blotchy thing, and that's okay for right now. Let's see, enter. There we go. And I'm just going to move it over here to the side so we can see this a little bit better. So if I drag on this a little bit, you can see it come apart right there. Let me click off of it. I'll apply it. And maybe it needs to come sideways a little bit. There we go. There we go. So you can see what it looks like when it's repeated down your quilt. You may have these little kind of gaps in here. And based on your how close you get it, you would have less of a gap. So think about that when you pick different designs, how it's going to look. If you have a quilt that's very square, has lots of squares in it, this would be a great way to go. Maybe squares with sashing, and then you could put something in the sashing. That would be different. Or you could use your AccuFeed foot and do some things, in the open spaces here if you want to. There's lots of ways to think outside the box if you fall in love with a design that is a block design. So let me just close that because I don't need it. And I'm going to go back to my browser. The other thing is this design here is a corner design, I believe. And then this one here is another one that would be a border design. And so one of the things too with this one, this is a pretty narrow design. It's only 2.25 inches this way by 1 and something that way. It's tiny for a sashing. You could make it bigger, but if you wanted to not have to keep hooping this one, this would be a good one to combine and do several across your quilt. And let me go to my quilting hoop. I'm going to go up here to change and pick my ASQ hoop. There we go. So if I select this one, oops, let's turn that hoop off. There we go. And I'm going to duplicate it and just move it over here like that. So I can have those together. I'm going to come in close and look at it. So I want to bring it kind of close to there like this. And then I'm going to hit Shift and select both of these. I'm going to right click and it says group there. And the reason it says group is because I don't have combine yet, because these are raw designs, which I need to convert them to curves so that I can combine them. So they'll have stitch properties. So now they have stitch properties. And here I can change my stitch length if I want. I can even give it a different stitch if I want. But it is selected. And now when I right click, I'll get combine. And it combined right here. And I'm going to bring it in like this and show you. If you are looking at the stitches of this, let's go to auto first, and then we'll go to stitches. You can see that the stitches are coming and going in a weird direction. Let's see, they're going into the next one, but then they're coming back out. And one of the things you don't want is it repeating back on itself or going in the wrong direction. Let me get rid of this here. There we go. And you can also see what I want to show you here is the locking stitches between the pieces are still here like this. And you can see them, they're connected. I'm going to pull them all apart so you can see. So it's going to do this little piece here. It's going to come from that direction and come around that way. And I'm not sure we want it to go in that direction. So you want to make sure when you combine that we clean this part up. And it's easy to clean that up. One of the ways, and I'm going to go back to select and undo all that and go back to one design. There we go. One of the ways to do that is when you convert it and then you duplicate it and you move it over, what you can do is remove those locking stitches first and then combine. So you could go to your auto and turn on stitches. Sometimes you have to go back to it a separate time. Oh, auto back on. There we go. And then you'll see your stitches. Let me click again here. There they are. And I can click on these stitches and delete them. I'm just using, let me just put them this way so you can see. And I'll go in a little closer. I'm just selecting them and hitting delete on my keyboard. Okay. And these are going in that direction. I might be able to select it and mirror my stitches. Let's say across. Let's see what happens when I go back to stitches. Nope, did not change them. So you may have to do a little bit of work on this to get these to come together, but you can put them both together. I also have used the node editor, but when I bring these close, let's get this one. Hang on a second, let me click. There we go, bring it close. And then we'll combine that. Turn that off, we're okay with that. Let's not have, let me start again because I have a third one in here, which I didn't really want at this third one. There we go. And I wanted to show you, so you can work with those locking stitches so you don't have them. But let's go back because the design that I wanted to work with was our B design, which actually is here. All right. So on this design, when you have it small and you want to put them together, you would duplicate them or copy paste and then bring them close. You need to convert to curves for each one. There we go. And then let's take a look here at stitches. There we go. So you can see it has those extra stitches there. This one will have them as well. And when we bring this together, go back to selection, and I select both, and I right click combine. It will combine them, but it will do that little back and forth there. And that's when I can come in here and remove all these stitches that are those locking stitches, which we don't need. So let me just click and delete on them. There we go. I think I have all of them. I can move that one. Oh, there's one underneath there. Let's take this one out. There we go. Now I have one continuous design. So I can use that to stitch across my quilt. Instead of making two hoopings, I have one larger hooping. And let's go back to select, and I can move that down on here. The thing you have to watch out for is on the other design, and we're okay with that because I removed some pieces. On the other design that we were doing, let me go back and look at that. This one here. This one has, I don't know if it's double stitch. Sometimes designs are, they go one direction and then come back on itself. So we can take a look at, let's do it this way first and look at it in slow redraw to see what happens. And it's going to go, let's see here. Okay, so it ends right there. It starts on the left and ends on the right. And then we can convert it to curves because nothing will work until we can't edit those. Well, let's see what happens if I look at those stitches. There we go. So they are going in that direction. So when I copy and paste this and join it together, it would be the same way. So I would look at this end here, and then I could fix it from that end. I had converted this before, so it's coming up as the raw. So you can take that little part out. So that's an easy way to work with your designs. If you have software, you can do that kind of thing. You can join them in that way. The other thing is if you don't have it, you can remove those stitches, and then we'll go back to that one. You could remove those stitches at the beginning and the end so you don't have that lock, and then just pull your bobbin thread up and do the knotting and move on. You'll have less of this overlap here going there, less noticeable. So you can remove those. When I have them selected, I could remove them. This takes my lock away, which I might not want to do. I have to move them to see which ones I'm deleting. There we go. So now I'd move these back down in here like so. So now it's going to stop here, and I would have to pull my bobbin thread up and then restart the next one and pull the bobbin thread up. So I would have to knot these in and when I finish my quilt. I just wouldn't have that buildup of stitches. If you left it in, you'd have these extra stitches right there. And that's just up to you what you want to do. If you don't have software, don't worry about it. Just start the next one right here, and then you can go on from there. You can always stop if you want. If you can figure out what that last stitch is, you can always stop before it backs out over itself and end your piece right there. That's another option with that. All right, let me see if there was something else I was going to cover. I want to look at my designs in here again. Nope, I think that's it. This one here you can do in a border on the side, or you can turn it sideways. It does have the start and stop. And the important thing to look at is your start and stop are on the same plane. So they will line up. So that's if I put it on this line, you'll be able to see that. So, let's get it all on the line. There we go. That's important with designs that need to connect. They need to start and stop on the same plane. I could turn this sideways and run it across my quilt this way, or I can run it down and I can join it before I do that. And there's other ways to join things too. So this one, again, this is a nice one. You can see when I duplicate it and bring it down here, if I put that right up against it, that's where it will join and go together. And I think it also, let's select both of these and move them up. If we were to do this across this way, they do work pretty good. I'm going to go up a little bit there. They do come together pretty well, but you still will have some, openings in here. Sometimes you can mirror image your pieces, and that will make a difference. I don't know in this case if it will. You have to remember to mirror. And was that the right way? No. So you can work with mirroring them if you want to. sometimes that confuses me. So I don't always, it still looks pretty good. There's a little bit of a gap there. Some people will do things where they'll offset. That doesn't always work either. Let's see if that pops in there. You have some overlap. You can offset. Sometimes it just is making a bigger gap there. So a lot of times I'll use the features in my software so I can visually see what's happening. I like to see this before I stitch. Some people can visualize very easily, but use your software. Even if you're using the to copy and paste on the screen of your machine or in just regular editing software, take a look at that part of it so you can see what's happening so that you don't have any surprises. All right, I'm going to go back to the screen here and see how we're doing. There we go. All right, so that's working with designs and bringing them together. Remember, you need to, you can do a couple different things. I'll just review really quickly. You can turn on edit stitches. Now, both Junior and the full version have edit stitches. Junior does not have edit nodes, and I didn't really show the nodes. You can do the same thing with nodes. But I wanted to show stitches because we have some people out there now with our CM17 that have the Junior program, and so they can do it with editing those stitches. So you can remove those locking stitches at the end. You can bring it together with combine so that you can go across your quilt a little quicker rather than these little parts going across. You can resize designs as well and recalculate those stitches. So it's really important to do that part of it. There have been some designs where you can, if you're creative, if you had 4 of them and you wanted to, maybe when we work with creating our own, we're going to work with creating some, you can create a stitch to kind of bring them together if you wanted to do 2 rows. But you have to be creative and ready for that kind of thing. So we'll talk about that in another segment when we start going over creating our own edge-to-edge designs, which I like doing that myself. The ones I showed today all came from OESD, and they have beautiful designs. I love working with their designs too, but I also like to create my own designs, and then they're more unique, or maybe they're part of my project. I'll use fabric that's in my quilt for my inspiration to create my design. Maybe someone has drawn something for me that I like that I want to use. I can also create a block with my name. So we'll discover all of those when we go over that part of it. I think that's coming up in the February segment where we'll be creating our own edge-to-edge design. So hopefully you'll look forward to that. So I want to thank you for joining me today. It's been very nice to have you here, and I'll see you again live with Janome. Have a great day, everyone. Bye for now.